as we approach the new year, many people are going to be penciling down a lot of goals, and the pursuit of your goals requires some audacity.
Confidence is the story you tell yourself about yourself.
It's really about where we put our self-esteem and where we put our identity, because your confidence cannot be rooted in your performance all the time.
There is such a beauty in acknowledging that you need help, because you now give people that love you an opportunity to show up for you.
Talk to me about the woman who may be stifling her confidence because she feels as though she may intimidate other women.
Ooh. Hello and welcome to the To My Sisters podcast. I'm Renee.
And I'm Courtney, and we are your online sisters and hosts of the To My Sisters podcast.
Now, we are all about promoting the wellness, growth and development of a community of sisters across the world.
And in today's episode, we are going to be talking about overcoming imposter syndrome and building confidence in a world that seems to hate confident women.
They hate us. Nah, Courtney had been. She said, I'm ready to talk to you first today.
You know what it is? Because I find that, in the age of women can do it all.
Yeah,
as soon as a woman as soon as a woman starts moving in her, executive presence and in her full confidence and knowledge of who she is, where she's going, and a determination to get there, she seems to receive some kind of backlash under the guise of humility and humbling. And I think this is a really important conversation which you wanted to have, that we get to platform, and I'm glad we get to talk about it with you, because I think you are a huge embodiment of confidence and what it looks like to work.
I'm getting shy for a confident babe. I'm getting shy.
Make us click off the episode. I'm joking, but yeah, I think you are a huge embodiment of what it looks like to be very intentional about cultivating confidence, overcoming insecurities, and also like navigating social media, the world's definition of success for women as well, and helping us through how to optimize our confidence journeys. I think that's definitely your big bag. So let's just, before we jump straight into it, actually, housekeeping announcements.
Gotta sweep the house.
Housekeeping announcements. Let's make sure the house is clean. Sisters, some notice for you. Ghana is happening March 2025, and we want you to be a part of that trip. There are very few spaces left at this point, so if you want to come, I implore you, hit the link in our description and in the show notes to come with us to Ghana to have a fun girls trip with a couple girls from all around the world who want to do sisterhood and exploration and adventure together in my motherland of Ghana.
Period. Courtney and Ajua take Ghana.
Take Ghana for real. So it's going to be a really, really good time. We're doing it in collaboration with our travel partners, Sorted Chalet, who are going to ensure that it's not only a fun time, but a safe time as well. So you have nothing to worry about. But please, if you do want to come with us, I've heard so many of you say, I want to come. How do I come? Guys, the application needs to be put in ASAP, because we do screen everybody.
With haste,
It's not just you can just pack your
it's
bag.
It's not just anybody that will be coming with us to Ghana.
Ourselves. So to give us enough time to actually check that we're putting together the right group of people, please apply ASAP. And to all the girls who have applied so far and have actually been accepted, cough, I'm talking to you.
Yeah.
Can you start making your payments? Just to say, it's a message from the higher ups.
Yeah, we are
just the messenger.
We're just the workers.
But just so that this whole thing can go smoothly. And also, actually, if you are in Ghana, obviously we're going to be in Ghana the first week of March. Absolutely. If you are in Ghana and you are a podcast, a radio show, just a publication, a women's organization, a community, a church, whatever, and you would love for us to speak, especially given that it is International Women's Month in March, then please do tell us in advance so that we can organize our schedules and know how long we're going to be in Ghana for. So if you'd love for us to do something collaboratively, love for us to speak somewhere, or just do something in collaboration with your organization, we are all about collaborating communities. So let us know. We'll be there, and it's not every day that we're there.
That's true.
If you want us,
we
to
wish
do
it were so.
We'll interview us, get us to host something. We are taking every opportunity. We are. Any reason to be in Ghana obviously has to be sensible, in alignment with our values.
Again, no seedy, no shady things. We're not supporting the forex traders. Like, there's a list of caveats.
Facts. I think bar that, there's nothing super urgent, but Christmas is coming. Christmas is coming. So we hope that you are resting. We hope that you are taking time out to really
Do your thing.
Do your thing, man. Spend time with family, rest, reflect, travel, whatever.
Yeah.
Dirty December girls, hope you have shaking a leg.
Yeah, save
on
time.
behalf of all of us.
Save time there.
Yeah,
Watch your
facts.
drinks.
But yeah, whilst we have many things to announce, we do want to get into the juiciness of the conversation because as we approach the new year, many people are going to be penciling down a lot of goals, and the pursuit of your goals requires some audacity.
Yeah, they do.
And
confidence.
confidence. Yeah, they really do. Absolutely. So for you, Renee.
Yes, ma'am.
What does confidence look like?
Yeah.
And how do we balance that fine line between confidence and arrogance? Because oftentimes in the face of a woman building her confidence, there is this seems to be temptation that people can't resist. So kind of remind her you're not all that, or you know, kind of bring yourself down a little bit, right? And I think that's because under the guise of we don't want people to be moving around in arrogance, right? And in pride, which can often be dangerous to friendships and relationships and our interpersonal relationships, right? And community building. Like pride is a big thing that we identify as killing a lot of the relationships that we have in our lives. So what is the fine line between confidence and pride, and how do the two differentiate, and what do they look like?
That's such a beautiful question. I think the first thing that came to mind in terms of defining confidence is the story you tell yourself about yourself, right? Good. So that's why people can have low self-confidence or high self-confidence. Low self-confidence is when you have written a story in your mind about yourself, your capabilities, your capacity to do certain things. And the underpinning tone, message, phrase is inferiority. Wow. Whereas high self-confidence is when you have written a story in your mind in which you have recognized that you are somebody that believes in themselves. You have recognized that you have certain strengths, gifts, and talents that can be utilized for good. That's high self-confidence. So confidence being the script or the story or the narrative we decide to tell ourselves. Really and I think it's important for it to be a story because it means that there is an authorship to that story. As a Christian, I believe in two authors. I believe in co-authoring. I think it's a beautiful thing. And as somebody that's actually gone through the process of co-authoring, I realized that it becomes easier to write a story that you've co-authored because you're actually relying on somebody else to provide the story for you as well. So in terms of the bits that you are responsible for, it really is about deciding what you want to decide, what you want to believe about yourself, right? Like based on you know, the strengths, the weaknesses, the things that you have, the things that you care about, the things that you desire, what story can you craft about yourself that's actually positive? And what story can you craft about yourself that you can go back to when things get hard or challenging or difficult? And that in a way is how you develop confidence. I think sometimes we see confidence as something that's really tricky to do and hard and challenging. And yes, I do understand that, especially when you have been constantly replaying a negative script in your head. There's a lot of unlearning that you have to do. And there's a lot of work that you have to do to get to a place where you can start to say positive things about yourself, right? But the actual process of authorship, it's actually not as hard, or rather it's more straightforward than we think it is. Oftentimes, whenever I'm like struggling with moments of low self-esteem, I write things that I believe are facts about myself. So what are my strengths? Actually going through the process of, you know, I'm a diligent person. These are the things that I really care about. These are my values. And saying it to myself, affirming myself that these are what I hold to be true about myself. And then going back to the point around co-authorship, as somebody that is a Christian, well, the best book that you can look at to really understand, okay, what's the story or what's the script that I need to be telling myself is the Bible. The Bible tells me a lot about me. It tells me a lot about God, and it's through learning about God that I learn about myself in his eyes. And I think that's really important because when you write a book by yourself, you are often, this is why you have to go through editing processes as well when you're writing a book, because there will be some mistakes that you won't catch. But when you're co-authoring a book, when I think about the process that we even went through co-authoring, there was an opportunity for us to swap sides. You read over my, like writing my narrative, and I read over yours. I think it's very much the same with God, right? He's written a script, he's written a story about us. He submits it, well, he gives it to us, and we're like, okay, cool. What parts of the story, like how am I going to, you know, bring this as part of my own story, and vice versa. But I think we often forget to do the latter, where we submit our own script to God and say, God, what parts here that I've written about me and my story and my confidence and who I am can I hold to be true? Where are there areas that there may be mistakes? Where are there areas where I've allowed the voice of or the narratives from outside of you to creep into my narrative.
That's so good.
So going through that process with God and saying like, yeah, like I'm giving you full permission to edit my story. And that gives me so much confidence because there's nothing like an edited manuscript. You can be confident and strong in the fact that it's actually been checked over. So a lot of building confidence comes from writing that initial story, but then also submitting it to co-authorship with God so that you can write a story that is reflective of his truth, which has been revealed in the Bible.
I love that.
In terms of the distinction between confidence and pride, for me, it's all about where are you rooted in? If you're a confident person, you are aware of the gifts and talents that you have. But again, me being a Christian, I know that my confidence doesn't come from me. It actually comes from God, and it comes from that co-authorship process. When you become prideful, pride is basically a misappropriation of idols in your life, right? It's when you've decided that I am the bee's knees, that I am God, that I am not just the author, but I am the co-author, right? There's no other person that this process goes to. You are literally just, it's
the beginning and the end.
I am the be all, the end all. I am, the Icarus that flies too close to the sun. Pride is when your confidence, or at least your self-esteem, comes from everything that you do, and there's no board of approval. There is no external process to mitigate for the fact that you have weaknesses. And I think pride is actually when you are incapable of seeing your weaknesses. I think there is a beauty and confidence in that you have acknowledged that you have weaknesses. Yes, you have strengths, but also you have weaknesses, and you have actually mitigated for those weaknesses. But pride is when you have blind spots and you can't see that you're not as great as you think you are. And I think we often think of pride and arrogance as like big P, big A arrogance, right? It's the people that are mean and rude and come across as unkind, or they come across as quite just distasteful when you're in conversation with them. But if there's one thing that I've learned fairly recently in conversation with you, but also other people, when you actually really ask God, like, check me on my pride, you realize that it's an internal thing as well as an external thing.
Big time.
The external is when it's gone too far and it's actually entered into the atmosphere, right? It's actually manifesting towards other people. But there's also small a arrogance and small p pride in the internal thoughts that we have about ourselves, in the internal thoughts that we have about other people. It is indicative in, when our friend is doing something and we're thinking in our head, oh, I could probably do it better. It's indicative in when, somebody's trying to help you and you're kind of like, no, I really wish they didn't help me out because I don't feel like I need help. And these may not be things that you voice, but they're things that you voice in here internally, and they become a truth that goes unchecked. So I think those for me are some of the big distinctions between confidence and pride. It really is about where are you rooted in? Where is your truth rooted in? Who are you relying on at the end of the day? And also being cognizant of the fact that just because it's not manifesting doesn't mean that it doesn't exist. It's just that it exists internally and not externally.
That's so good.
But those are my thoughts. But I would love to hear what you think as well.
I agree. I think you defined it really, really well, and you really went in depth with it. I think for me, confidence is about this sense of assurance, right? And my confidence may not be in my ability, but at least it's in the fact that I'm here.
Yeah.
Right.
You know what?
And I have something to contribute to this space, and I'm willing to try. And I have also built a track record, which I can kind of draw on for some kind of strength. But even when it comes to my weaknesses, I think something I've been encouraging myself on recently is that thing you were talking about, co-authorship, or simply partnering with God and walking life out with him, is realizing that there is something that can strengthen my weaknesses. And there is a power I can draw on when my power comes to an end. And I think seeing that as also another source of confidence has helped me to mitigate certain things like pride, because I cannot boast in my own efforts.
Facts.
There are certain things that I've accomplished which, yes, it's a part of my track record, but I know it's not down to me.
That part.
I know it's not down to me. So looking at the fact that humility is also ascribing to God the glory he deserves, and really saying like, okay, you know what? I think another element of it is not just what God has done, but what he's allowed to be done through other people in my life. Because I think a huge way God keeps you humble is reminding you that you cannot do this life thing alone. Like this morning I was reading Exodus 3, and it was talking, it's when God is talking to Moses, right? And that's like an anchor scripture for a lot of different faiths. But God is talking to Moses, and he's like, I want you to go and set these slaves in Egypt free and go and talk to Pharaoh. And Moses is like, listen, dog, I love you. I can acknowledge the glory, but I can't talk very well. If you need a deliverance, not this stutterer.
Aaron.
And that's exactly what God does. God says, like, first of all, do you remember who I am? Like, I made the human mouth. Literally. I will teach you what to say and I will give you the words to speak. But if you're really not confident, let me bring along Aaron. Let me bring you your brother. Let me bring you somebody who can talk for you and who is strong in every area that you are weak. And you will help guide him and he will help manifest your calling too, right? And so there's this something that, yes, you have a weakness, and in your weakness, I'm not just going to affirm, because I think something that we're taught a lot about confidence is around affirmation and affirm yourself, and you are the be all and end all of your power. But there are some things which are outside of you, which you've come to your end of yourself, and you have nothing more to give.
This is actually the end of the road.
This is a weakness for you. This is it's not your sharpest skill. It's not your sharpest tool with the toolbox. It's okay.
That used to be such a cuss. Oh, you're not the sharpest.
You're not the sharpest tool in the toolbox. And this isn't one of your sharpest skill sets. However, not only can God bring strength to that weakness, he can also bring you someone who's strong in that area, right? Yes. And that really helps mitigate pride, because it requires humility to let somebody shine in the area you're a bit dim in, right? And allow somebody to be strong in the areas you're a bit weak in. And I think that welcoming in community, welcoming in people helps you to have confidence in community power. Yeah. And the fact that it's actually okay that you can't do everything by yourself. It's okay that sometimes you have to collaborate, or sometimes you have to ask for help as well. I think as women, we're often denied that. It's kind of seen as though, like, our weaknesses are really pointed at when we start asking for help, and it's like, oh wow, you couldn't be strong enough to go through this on your own. It's like, no, I couldn't. I need help. And that's something I'm recently learning in therapy as well. It's okay to say that you need help. Yes, it's okay to go to people when you need help. But talking about that, why do you think there is this disproportional pressure on women to be perfect, and how does that manifest insecurities in us as well?
Yeah, also another great question. I think the pressure on women to be perfect has come as a result of a number of different things. Patriarchy. I feel like we haven't used the word.
We haven't used that in a minute.
Patriarchy.
TMS 101.
You know what I'm saying? If you were a TMS OG, we was out here throwing patriarchy like it was seeds in the ground.
Literally.
But patriarchy baked into the very fabric of our society, especially within the West, because we have to talk about the Western hemisphere. Don't worry, we got some smoke for y'all down south and the rest of the world. But particularly in the West, we have baked patriarchy into the very fabric of our society.
That's good.
And it becomes a cultural norm to see women as objects. I mean, in our last conversation, we were talking about, albeit a different topic, pornography, but it's the same tactic of making women these objects. And one thing about an object is it's two-dimensional, right? It's very, very perfect. It's precise. When you think of some of the sculptures that people make or things that people make, there's certain measurements that it has to abide by in order for it to be classified as a chair or a sofa or whatnot. And I think that's what we've done to women. We have created a very specific dimension. We have created a very specific spec document for what a woman should be like, a script for women, if you will. And it becomes very, very hard to deviate from that script because there's so many ramifications, right? Like access to certain resources, access to communities, access to love and culture and all of these things that we actually need as human beings to thrive. That becomes very difficult to access when we deviate from these scripts that society has created for us. And a lot of these things can come in the micro, so within the family environments that we grow up in, where we've seen, our mothers have to grow up and take responsibility in so many different areas, to go into school and seeing how women behave when they are pitted against each other in the school gates, to when they're online out here trying to look cute for certain mandem and all them things there. We've seen it time and time again where women have to adhere to a certain script in order to survive. It's a survival mechanism. The more perfect that you can be, the more easier it is for you to navigate a lot of these social spaces. So I think that's where a lot of the pressure around perfectionism comes from. And then I think that is a lot of internal pressure that we heap on ourselves as women. I can speak, listen, as a recovering perfectionist, y'all. It's hard when you have dealt with the trauma of being let down. And I think a lot of women can resonate with the experience of being let down, whether it's by a caregiver, whether it's by environmental factors, whatever it is. There is the social script, but then there is the I've been let down and I've been disappointed by people a lot. So in order for me to make sure that I'm taking care of myself, I have to rely on myself, because that's the only thing, the only person that I have true visibility and control over. So in some ways, perfectionism can also be a trauma response in our attempt to try and control situations, control narratives, especially when we have been disempowered, or our agency and control has been taken and stripped from us. The challenge is, as already mentioned, you will reach the end of your tether at some point. You know, you are a wonderful person, but unfortunately you are not a perfect person. We are actually made, well, at least I believe that we are made to be imperfect people. And that means that at some point, you know, certain behaviors, certain things that you do will come up to the surface. The impurities will come up to the surface. And it typically happens when you're going through the fire, right? Like when we say, oh, gold refined through fire, the impurities come to the surface.
Real talk.
So if your life is, you know, you're going through a lot right now and you're thinking, oh, man, if only I could be more perfect in order to solve this situation. No. Perhaps the fire that you're experiencing right now in your life is not an opportunity for you to perform perfectionism, but for you to address the impurities that God is rising to the surface for you to have a look at. And it's tough because, living in a society that women are often, it's by necessity, it's a survival mechanism to try and be as perfect as possible. It can be really difficult to say, yo, I need help. It's a massive vulnerability. And as someone that has struggled, you know this, I have struggled. Although I feel like I've been getting so much better.
You have.
Guys, in fact, it might even be on the opposite side of the spectrum. I need help. Please send the flood, send help, send all of the emergency services at the same time.
I get you.
But there is such a beauty in acknowledging that you need help, because you now give people that love you an opportunity to show up for you.
That's it.
And as, at least I'm speaking for myself personally, as somebody who, you know, my love language is often quality time, spending time with people, people showing up for me, I didn't realize that I was actually holding people back or preventing people from showing me affection by not giving them the opportunity to show up for me in the first place. It was just a inexpressed expectation. And the thing about perfectionism is that it can create a whole bunch of standards and inexpressed expectations for not just you but other people. And it's like, yes, you're relying on yourself, but there's still a part of you that's kind of like even prideful in a way, where you're saying to yourself, I am the archetype, and I've been able to hold it down for myself, and people are lesser than because they can't uphold the same standards that I have for myself. So it's almost like you're setting yourself up for that cycle of disappointment and in some ways self-sabotage when it comes to your relationships, by simply not expressing those expectations, but also not dealing with the fact that you have standards that are prideful, that you are internally manifesting before you have them externally. So I think that's where kind of perfectionism kind of comes from. This is how it can manifest, how it can damage relationships as well. And it really takes a serious level of self-awareness to reckon with the fact that you are not perfect. It takes a serious amount of, because the way that humans are hardwired, I think we are just hardwired to be fleshly beings. Do you know what I mean? Like, we are hardwired to see ourselves as, again, the archetype. We're hardwired to see ourselves as perfect and wonderful, and it could never be me. Inherently, we want to believe that we are good despite doing bad. Like we can do the worst of worst, but you know what, my intention, I know, you know, only God can judge me. Just because only God can judge you, that don't mean that you can't take accountability for your wrongdoing. In fact, you should. In fact, you better take accountability before God judges you.
Facts.
Because once that's
what you should be scared of,
bro. When people are like, only God can judge me, have you seen where God has judged people in the Bible?
Exactly.
Lord, may it never be your story. Goodness gracious.
Yeah.
So I do think that there is a bit of work that we have to do as women where we lay ourselves down and say, look, I'm not perfect in these areas. And my capacity to progress in life is not dependent on my perfectionism.
That's good.
I can put things down. I think we were speaking about this a couple of weeks ago as well, but this idea that if you are a busybody, if you are a perfectionist, there is pride in thinking that, you know, nothing good will come in my life if I'm not the one that's like pursuing things, if I'm not the one that's at the helm, if I'm not the one that's at the forefront. And we think it's this weird sense of pseudo humility. It's like, oh, you know, I'm here to serve, you know, I'm here to try and like do great things in my life and whatnot. But there is a pride in that you can't even admit that you're weak, or like you can't even admit that you actually do have some shortcomings that will actually hinder rather than help your progress. So I think us as women, we actually need to learn to settle down small. Like it's actually okay to pause, reflect, and actually bake this into our lives and our days. I think for me as well, this has been a tough year for me because I've been getting sick really often and I'm a busybody. I like being productive. I like being outside doing stuff, etc. But being ill has actually forced me to slow down, and it has forced me to really think about where does my confidence, like where is that rooted in? Am I the kind of person that thinks that everything will halt if I'm not doing something? And I think that's the problem with a lot of women as well, right? It's the idea that even though we are painted as inferior, we're also painted as the glue that holds things together. So if you're not taking up your place as the perfect woman, then the whole world will crumble around you. And it is literally unfixing that idea from my mind and thinking that progress can still be made even from a place of rest, but also from a place of weakness.
That's so good. That is so good. I really, really, really enjoy that. And I think you hit the nail on the head. I think perfectionism is this external pressure that women feel, and it's very, very real. It's perpetrated by all institutions in society. And it's everyone drawing this demand on you, but at the same time, this internalization of that pressure that is, I must show up all the time. And when something comes, that means that we can't show up, and it knocks us down a bit. It knocks our confidence so much. And I love that you touched towards the end about, it's really about where we put our self-esteem and where we put our identity, because your confidence cannot be rooted in your performance all the time.
That's good.
Right? As much as you are building a track record, you have to understand that your performance is something that can be impacted by several factors in your life, from health to external circumstances to internal circumstances. You know, and so we let's be honest, sometimes we are this.
She said inside
there's a regulatory process and it's not going well. And it's okay as well. It's okay to embrace your humanity in that way. However, for a lot of women, room has not been created for their humanity, right? And a lot of people do feel that kind of punishment for, you know, making a mistake or, you know, not knowing, right? And needing help, and to some degree even being a beginner. And I want us to kind of transition this conversation into talking about imposter syndrome for that very reason. I think a lot of people, when they talk about imposter syndrome, they quickly, you know, hurdle towards the solution and how we can, you know, psych ourselves up into being our most confident selves. However, I think there is something to be said about the legitimacy of the imposter syndrome feeling. And that whole coming into a space, whether it be corporately or professionally, or entering into a dimension of, you know, achieving your goals, where you do start to question, oh my gosh, I don't actually feel like I belong in this space, so I can have this thing, right? Talk to me about the legitimacy of the imposter syndrome feeling, as well as how we can actually overcome it.
For sure. First of all, I think it's a very valid feeling. It's very valid to enter into an environment that you may be uncomfortable or it may be unfamiliar to you, and you are, for some reason or the other, not the norm, right? You are not the usual suspect.
Especially as Black women.
Like, you are no stranger to entering into several rooms where you are the only Black, you are the only woman.
Sorry. No, you're the only Black.
You're the only Black.
That is literally our parents' way of saying it.
And you know what, the way some people say Black, it's it's a swear word. You're Black. But no, you are not a stranger to the fact that there have been so many rooms that we've entered into where we have been the only Black, the only woman, the only Black woman. So to add insult to injury, it is You know, you are as far away from the norm that pervades that kind of space. And those are legitimate feelings, especially when, you know, it's funny because I sometimes think that imposter syndrome often focuses on the person, where really we should also be challenging the institutions.
And the culture of it.
And the culture.
Facts.
Of course I'm going to be feeling like an imposter. I ain't seen nobody that looks like me.
And this culture has been created around people who've been allowed to occupy this space.
Comfortably.
There we go.
Comfortably, mind you. So I do think that it is a legitimate feeling, but I think there's been a disproportionate amount of emphasis on us building up our confidence and building up our capacity to enter into these spaces without also legitimately challenging a lot of these spaces that, let's be quite frank, were not built to support or create the same level of comfort within the culture for people like me. And that's perfectly fine to say, because imposter syndrome is not a mental health. It's not
a legitimate feeling.
I'm not crazy.
It's a cultural issue.
It's like, it's just, people will have you thinking that it's you that's crazy.
You.
It's just a confidence issue. Yes, there's an element of that too. But some of y'all crazy in these institutions. Like, just because, you know, let's take like Oxford and Cambridge, for example. That was one of the first times that we really felt that level of imposter syndrome, of course. Yes, there is the legitimate feeling of like entering into a new space and me needing to be confident. But there's also the very real reality that I was one of like maybe 2 black people in my college at the time. That's real.
That is real.
It's real.
That's real. Put it on the table. Put it on the table.
Like, you know,
it's real.
When you look at UK Parliament as well, like you enter into those spaces and it's like, you know, you might be one of 3 black people if you're lucky. That again is real. Or, you know, pursuing entrepreneurship as well as a black founder. You enter into these spaces for founders in the UK. Oh,
where are the black people at?
And where are the black women?
Literally.
You know what I'm saying? Specifically, because a whole bunch of it. And it's gotten better.
Where are the sisters?
Yeah, the sisters.
Literally.
They've been congregating in a place called TMS.
And it's not, amen. And it's not that they don't exist. It's that they're not welcomed into the space. And so, yes, imposter syndrome is a legitimate thing.
It's a very legitimate thing. And in fact, it's the environment sometimes that's the imposter shout, but it's okay. It's okay.
But you know what? I love that you emphasize as well that it's often remedied with like this personal confidence journey, right? Make yourself more confident and you won't feel like an imposter anymore. But actually there is a wider conversation about culture. However, there is that immediate desire to not feel like an imposter anymore and like really step into that presence that you should have in a space where you've desired to be and also you deserve to be, right? And so how do women kind of bridge that gap of, okay, cool, I have an awareness that this culture doesn't, you know, accommodate people like me and needs a lot of change, but I'm also here now. So how do I step into that executive presence? And it could be stepping into it, growing into it, whatever it means. How do I actually embody the confidence needed to not only exist in this space and withstand that resistance, but also to help change the winds of culture as well in this space?
Fantastic question. I think that it operates almost in the same way that emotional regulation operates, right? In that you can recognize that you're feeling something like anxiety or nerves or whatnot, but then you have to make a decision around what does it empower you to do. So it's the same with imposter syndrome. I'm feeling this nervousness, this anxiety, this sense of discomfort and ill ease at being in this environment. But what does that empower you to do? And I think sometimes we need to recognize that just because we are feeling an uncomfortable or negative emotion, that doesn't necessarily mean that the manifestation will have to be negative. Oftentimes it can actually be a positive thing. So when you are presented with that feeling when you enter into these spaces, I would challenge you to actually pause for a second and think, what is the best way to channel this feeling into something that might actually benefit me, but also the people in this space around me? So I think having that regulatory framework internally to be able to do that work. And I think also practice. I think that a lot of us have embraced being homebodies for obvious reasons. Or more, it's expensive outside. It's expensive.
Facts.
But when you are going out into spaces, especially in professional settings or also personal settings, there is an element of risk taking. You have to increase your risk appetite. How do you do that? By making moves. You can't expect to feel comfortable in an environment if you don't spend time in the environment. You have to spend time there.
Come on.
It's very basic. Do you know what I'm saying? So, I'm an imposter because I'm not really in these environments. Well, get to know that environment. Get to go there. Or like, it's like someone saying, I don't really like, hot drinks that much. It's like, how many hot drinks have you had? I don't really frequent. I don't really go out for drinks. Well, then how do you know that you won't like it if you haven't tried it? So I think there is an element of women increasing their risk appetite. And I think there's something that we can actually learn from men there in that I know some of them can make some reckless decisions. Some of them risk. Scary. Some of their gambling behavior is a bit serious. But I think there is something about women where we can tend to be quite risk averse.
Absolutely. And
putting ourselves in risky environments is actually quite different than a lot of us are inclined to. We often crave spaces of comfort and safety, etc. So I think there is something about women actively finding spaces that make them uncomfortable and sitting in that discomfort a little while. I had one of my favorite professors, a philosopher, back at Harvard. I won't name him, although I don't think he would actually mind because I was going to say something positive about him. Dr. Human. He was such a funny but very eccentric professor, and he taught us critical theory. So it was a very philosophical, existential curriculum that he was teaching us. But I remember one of his like takeaway phrases when he basically did this thing where every time we would enter into the class, he would say nothing. He would just like either stand on like one of the pieces of furniture in the classroom. Sometimes he would face us, sometimes he wouldn't face us. And I entered into this class. I'm like, sir, is everything okay with you? What are you going through? This man would say nothing. And then eventually he was like, this makes you guys feel really uncomfortable. You need to sit in it. And eventually it became a norm of us entering into the class. Dr. Human has said nothing. And at first, the first few classes, I'm like, this guy's a weirdo. What's going on? By class 3 or class 4, that's just Dr. Human. He's just out here. He doesn't say anything. We're comfortable with it. But even in that, we were taught a very valuable lesson of sitting in the discomfort until it becomes comfortable. There is something about practicing yourself out of imposter syndrome, practicing confidence, practicing going through the motions until either you or the environment changes. Usually it's both. And oftentimes it starts with us and then the environment follows. So even in terms of like focusing on our like personal confidence and then how do I become a world changer in these environments, focus on yourself first. Focus on how comfortably you can navigate these spaces. Focus on the art of entering into somewhere that is in some respects quite hostile to you and getting comfortable in being in that environment. And then you can focus on the next part of that where you can be a world changer and opening doors for other people. Because I think the temptation, especially for a lot of Black and brown folks or folks that exist on an intersectional plane, is that by default, by de facto of entering into a space, I have to be an activist straight away. It's okay. You don't have to be an activist. Sometimes you just need to exist comfortably in the space.
You've got to activate first.
Do you know what I'm saying? You need to activate.
Warm up to this situation.
Do you know what I'm saying? Sometimes you just need to feel comfortable bringing your jollof rice to the office. Do you know what I'm saying? It's like, I want to be a world changer, but you're still hiding your egusi.
Your stained container.
No, I don't like egusi. Sorry, guys.
I do. I think it's great.
But the stained container don't kill me. Because that thing stains. You're talking about, I want to create an environment where people feel comfortable, but you yourself are not living a life where you're comfortable in this environment. You're hiding your stained Tupperware. Do you know what I'm saying? So focus on you yourself becoming comfortable in this environment and also recognizing the humanity of the people that are also in that environment with you. I think sometimes we can also approach things with certain biases that we have in our mind around how that environment and the people will treat us. I know that for me, like going into a lot of workspaces, I was taught, or I felt like I needed to, like, it was just, I'm going to work to just do the work and go home. I don't need to make friends here. And I had the same mentality when I went to university as well. The best way for me to survive is to do the work and go, as opposed to making this place a home for me too, and staying and remaining. Sometimes we just need to remain long enough for that place to become a place that is akin to a home.
That's so good.
So challenging yourself to not just enter into an environment, but get comfortable and making it your home.
Yeah.
And it's only when you make a place your home that you can then invite other people.
Yeah.
You can't invite other people to a guest house. Maybe Airbnb, you can do it for a couple of days, but it's only a place that you're familiar with, only a place where you're comfortable with the people there, that you've spent enough time getting to know everyone, spent enough time really figuring out how to work things out for yourself, making this abnormal environment normal enough for you that you can then focus on this is a comfortable place I can bring other people into.
So good. I love that you touched on that, because I think similarly when I was in university, being around like so many white people and being in a predominantly white institution, again, it was just about, I need to just perform well and then I'll hide away. I don't need to like interact and really integrate into this space as well, and like make this, like you said, a home and like somewhere that I'm comfortable. And it robbed me of so much joy for those 3 years of my undergrad. Like, I was in an elite institution, you know, the home of intellectual thinking, and I didn't even feel comfortable to really immerse myself in that novel environment because I was hiding away all the time. And it just robs us of so much joy. And I think sometimes when we talk about imposter syndrome and we talk about combating it with just entering into this high functioning confidence, this pseudo confidence, we forget that it's okay to just enjoy the space that you're in. And it doesn't have to be confidence, but it can be joy. It can be enjoying the process. It can be just being okay with being in the middle and being here and getting used to the space, learning. Like, I think also talking about it practically as well, it's forming relationships with people in that space to try and understand the culture and also bring some change to the culture through conversations. It's mentorship. It's just guidance, right? That allows you to grow into your most confident self, because it's not just something you wake up as. I think a lot of us the way we think about confidence is, it's almost like just put on clothes that are too big for you and hope you grow into it. No, you're just walking around in a suit you're drowning in.
We can see it.
And we can see it, and we can tell that that's not you. It's not your voice. It's not your true perspective. And so I think embracing that, the reason why you're in this space is because you in your present form are enough to get the job done. And it's okay to also grow and evolve through the parameters that may be in place. And if they're not in place, actually ringing the alarm on that and being like, hey, you know, this is how I currently feel, and that's actually a very valid feeling, and this is what we can do to bring about change. And I think that's what allows us to step into those executive positions and leadership positions and change making positions, which a lot of us actually desire, but because we, like you said, don't want to embrace that discomfort, we don't rise to the occasion. But I think to pivot the conversation a little bit, I think we need to talk about female friendships and how, for a lot of people, the reason why they kind of may stifle their confidence or maybe manifesting their confidence as arrogance and pride is because when they are surrounded by other women, there's this temptation to compete. And so talk to me about the woman who may feel, even if she hasn't acknowledged it yet, intimidated by other women's confidence, and talk to me about the woman who may be stifling her confidence because she feels as though she may intimidate other women.
Ooh, that's so interesting. Those are really good archetypes to talk about. Well, to the lady that is intimidated, I think there is something that needs to be addressed within you in terms of, why is this intimidating to you? Is it a intimidation that's fueled by a secret desire where you want to be like your friend and being bold in expressing your confidence and whatnot? If so, then there's an opportunity for you to draw from the strength of your confident friend, right? Like, if there's days that you're feeling down, or days where you're like, oh, I really wish that I could articulate myself like this person, or I wish that I had this same level of confidence about myself in this way, seeing your friend, rather than seeing them as a competitor or somebody that intimidates you, actually leaning on them and leaning on the strength that they have to be able to help you in your journey in that specific area. So I think there's something around leaning on the efforts and leaning on your friend. It's really given, let me actually lean on the areas that I think my sister can actually bring, and also figuring out what may be stopping you from doing that as well. Because I do know that, especially within the area of female friendships, there can be legitimate competition or jealousy and all that kind of stuff. So you don't necessarily want to come across that way, or maybe you're not as intimately connected with your friend. But I think that if you're truly friends with a lady that you love and vice versa, you should actually be able to, correct me if I'm wrong or I'm revolutionary or not, but you should be able to go to your friend and be like, babe, like, I've actually been struggling a little bit with my self-esteem. I love the way that you carry yourself. I love how you've been able to, you know, do this kind of work on yourself. What's the tea? Like, help me out here a little bit. And obviously not expecting them to do the work for you, but they can at least support you a little bit.
Absolutely.
So I think opening yourself up to the possibility of leaning on the strength of your friend would be really helpful, but also addressing what it is within you that may be causing that deficit, or that thinking that you're not worthy, or that thinking that you can't occupy the same space as your friend does and you can't coexist comfortably. There's a bit of internal reflection there, and what you perceive to be your weaknesses as well. Is it that you think that confidence can only be manifested in the way that your friend manifests it? If so, that's actually incorrect. Yes, it may be that she is strong in this particular area, but you also need to do some work reflecting on where are my strengths, as opposed to focusing on what you perceive to be your weaknesses. Good. So those are the two things I would say to the first lady. Yeah. To the second lady, I know we have that quotation around, you know, don't set yourself on fire to keep other people warm and all that kind of stuff, and let your light shine, blah, blah, blah. Why are you afraid? Like, no, but sometimes you have to start with the basic questions. Why are you afraid? I think in both cases, we need a radical reformation as to how we understand and navigate our friendships and our relationships. Because equally, I think that if you are afraid of upstaging your friend, or if you feel as though your friend is going through a tough time where they're not really feeling as like confident, or you don't really feel comfortable enough to express yourself to your fullest extent, beyond it potentially being a little bit of arrogance or pride on your part, there's a conversation that needs to be had there in terms of, why do you feel so stifled? Like, what is the fear? Is it that you're going to provoke insecurities in your friend? If so, you need to have a conversation about that, either internally, insofar as is it pride, or with your sister and saying like, yo, you know, sometimes I feel like I am either doing too much, or maybe it is that there's an intimacy issue. Do you feel that you are comfortable enough with your friend to bring your fullest and most authentic self to your friendship? Again, that is worth a conversation, because the feeling of being stifled is so uncomfortable. Yeah. It's like wearing a dress that's far too tight. You know, them ones where you have to like jump up a little bit and the zip and everything is just not working. It's really, really uncomfortable. And I'm of the belief that no friendship should ever feel like that. Like you're literally wearing an uncomfortable dress. So I think there does need to, in both circumstances, to be fair, you need to reevaluate your friendship. Like, there should under no circumstances be that sense of competitiveness, that sense of stifling, that sense of inadequacy. And if these are things that you're dealing with, there's an internal conversation that needs to be had, but also there's an intimacy issue. To me, it sounds like that needs to be addressed within the confines of that friendship.
Yeah, I hear that. I think the kind of perspective I see it from as well on the latter, like, sort of archetype is, I know that there are certain people, all of us are on different stages of our glowing and growing journey. And I think that sometimes you can sense that your friend has maybe developed a huge sense of confidence in the way she articulates herself, the way she's going after things in life. And maybe another one of your friends hasn't gotten there yet and is still working on it. And I think that sense of like, oh, should I maybe hold myself back or confine my confidence, is you don't want to be perceived as boasting. You don't want to be perceived as intimidating as well. I think even for myself, I have had situations where, you know, I've had friends tell me the way you articulate yourself and the way you like navigate through life, it's a lot. Like, it is actually it can feel intimidating because you're going after it, or you know how to like share your thoughts, articulate your and I think sometimes that can put okay, I don't want to move ahead of my sister, I want to move with my sister. And that can sometimes look like not holding yourself back, but slowing down, right, in the way that you maybe racing ahead with your conversation or stuff like that. So I think it's not necessarily paring back your confidence, but being more aware of how the articulation or the manifestation of it makes another person feel. And if that can hinder the intimacy that you were mentioning, right? If that can hinder their comfortability being around you or engaging with you on certain topics. I'll give an example. Recently, I had a fight with my younger sister, sibling to sibling situations. We had an argument, and she was saying how sometimes, because of the way you can quickly and articulate yourself in an argument or in a debate, it can feel like you're attacking me, like in the way that it manifests. And I was like, no, this is just me being assertive. But I had to be very cognizant of just the way she was receiving it, and not just, this is just how I naturally am, especially for somebody who may need a bit more time to just process their emotions and their feelings and all of that stuff. And so for me, assertiveness is a form of confidence, right? Like knowing what I want to say and saying it is confidence. Whereas to her, that can come across as quite intimidating. And at that moment, it was really affecting our relationship negatively. And so I think taking a step back to think about, okay, does my confidence come across as, what's the word I'm looking for? Inconsiderate, right? Like where I'm not considering this person's emotions in the moment, and how can I consider this person without stifling myself, and also articulate to them in a way that is easy to receive without dumbing down my shine or being disingenuous to who I really am. And I think that that's just a part of maturely navigating relationships, which allows you to journey with each other at a similar pace, and like just make sure you're not ripping the yoke that's on someone else's neck because you're moving 1,000,000 miles per hour. And I don't think that's about making yourself smaller. I think it is about taking a moment in that situation and in that opportunity to slow down and be like, okay, how can we get on the same page? Because I don't want to hurt you. I don't want you to feel maybe feelings of insecurity or pain or threat, but also this is who I am. So where do we go from here? So yeah, that's what I kind of sense sometimes with that scenario, that archetype. It's like, I don't actually want people to feel intimidated by me, but I do also want to be my most confident self. And I think there's a part there about emotional awareness, right? And emotional, not just IQ, but EQ. What is the emotional quotient? What is the word emotional I'm looking quotient for? Like, when you're talking about emotional intelligence, that's it. It's about emotional intelligence and navigating relationships where you can see, okay, maybe not that I'm talking at a high level or whatever, but maybe I need to come and make sure we're all moving together. And I'm not just it's like when you're in a class and you're the smartest kid in the class, right? And you could just start moving. It's like, pause. Let's take the whole class with us on this journey. And it's not, I don't think it's a thing of dumbing yourself down. I think it's emotional intelligence.
I think even the reframing of it as like as in it's not about you. That's the thing. I think because oftentimes we can perceive these things so personally. Like, oh, this is about me and my capacity to shine and stuff. And it's like, no. This is not about you and just expressing how you naturally would, but also, as you were saying, take it into consideration, how can I say this in a way in which that person can receive it better and best?
And also, how can I create room for this person as well to feel confident in themselves as well? So like, okay, if you are talking to your friend and they're struggling to articulate their thoughts as fast as how do you hold space for them too and make them feel like it's okay if we don't process things at the same time or in the same way? I can hold space for the way that you process things, and it's equally as valid as the way I process things, if that makes sense as well. So that's where I wanted to talk about that situation. Well, sisters, there is so much we can actually unpack from this topic. And maybe if you comment down below and let us know what you would like for us to talk about, we could talk about it in an upcoming episode in 2025.
How about that?
Which is literally around the corner, mate.
Around the corner, mate. Like,
crazy.
If you bust a right, it's right there.
Crazy. I think our last episode is next week. Our last episode of the year is next week. Crazy things. 2024, season 5 is done.
Are we going to get Courtney wearing something Christmassy?
I think Christmas is this week's episode. Next week is New Year's.
Are we going to get Courtney to wear something a bit holiday?
No.
Stay tuned. We're going to see what we can make happen.
Okay. Might get a red lip. I don't know.
Give us some.
I'm getting the red lip.
Tinsel.
No.
Antlers.
No.
Christmas jumper.
Never.
Is there never for me? Oh, God.
Guys, I'm not a Scrooge. I love Christmas, but
for somebody that loves Christmas, you're only giving
no, I
us a
actually
red
only
lit.
recently started loving Christmas. I used to hate it.
And I feel like as a commitment and dedication to showing the progression that you have made and
Let me
to
grow in
love,
this area that I feel like an
me hold
imposter.
space. Yeah,
There you go. Hold space for my
let me
growth.
hold space for your growth. That's okay. I can be patient. If you see me in a red jumper next week, then you know that's cool. We can coexist.
There we go. We can coexist. We can coexist. But there we go. So yeah, sisters, we hope we will see you next week for our last episode of 2024. Genuinely, as the year comes to an end, we are praying for you that 2025 will be the manifestation of your most confident and assured self. And even if you don't feel like her right now, you will become her in 2025 and beyond. And we are praying for the best to come out of you guys' glowing and growing journey. We can't wait to journey with you in 2025 and just share all of the things that are changing with life and the lessons that come with it. So if you enjoyed this episode, make sure that you follow us on social. Well, firstly, make sure you share it. Share this episode with somebody who
that was
may
so
benefit.
auntie-ish.
Yeah,
Please
please
wait.
just share it. The link. Yeah, share the link. Share the link with somebody, but also follow us on social media at To My Sisterhood. You can also follow us individually. My lovely best friend at Renee Kapuku and myself at CD Boating. We know we haven't answered a dilemma in a while, but keep sending them in at dilemmas@tomysisters.com or head to our website tomysisters.com. There is a submission box for dilemmas now, and we will answer them probably in an upcoming episode or on our exclusive community platform, which is rolling out real soon. I didn't say that. So we'll talk to you really, really soon. Have a great Christmas and just a holiday period. We love you so much, and as always, keep glowing and growing.